Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. I think probably every one of you on the call knows who I am. I'm Victoria Compton from the EDC. And our PSA, as always, is that we are here to help businesses. So whatever your business needs, just call us or email us and we can help you with it. We refer to partners like Laura Sandstrom from Heritage Bank, Chris Reed from SCORE, Kyle from the county, all kinds of different partners who can help us get through this current downturn. So I would really like to say a big thank you today to our speakers, Laura Sandstrom and Kyle Davies Laura Sandstrom from Heritage Bank, Kyle Davies from San Juan County. A big thank you to them for talking about what they're about to talk about. And without further ado, I'm going to hand the mic over to Laura Sandstrom, who's going to talk about the PPP, that loan program from the SBA and how that's going. Thank you, Laura. Oops, we got you muted. Let's see if we can unmute you from your end.
Hear me?
Yeah, now we can.
Hey, yay! All right.
Thank you.
So, yes, of course. Thanks for having me. I feel a little bad because I don't, as far as the forgiveness portion, and if I'm understanding right, you're hoping to get some information out there on the forgiveness portion.
Hey, Laura.
Yeah.
I'm sorry I have to interrupt you, but I forgot to tell everybody that we're recording this session just so that we can get it to people who can't make it to the meeting today. So sorry, Laura. I will now mute myself and say nothing further.
Not at all. So my understanding from John was that you were hoping the conversation today would be a little bit about the forgiveness portion of the PPP. But I also wanted to just remind everyone that as of Monday, there was still $100 billion available in this program. So if there are people out there that you know of that have not applied yet, it's not too late. So they can reach out to us at the bank. They can reach out to their lender. I've heard that Square is is facilitating this process. So there's still money available. That being said, the people who were part of the first phase, which started, that second week of April, all the way through the most recent days, are starting to think about what the forgiveness portion of this loan needs to look like. The SBA published an application on the 15th. I will say, if you haven't looked at it, it's 11 pages. It's very difficult to understand. I do lending on a regular basis. It melted my brain a little bit. I talked to my SBA lender here actually last night to find out if she had any other information, that I could pass on to everybody. And she said, wow, you are either really brave or really stupid because we just don't have a lot of information yet to give everyone. So that being said, I will tell you, there's still really insufficient direction to completely to accurately complete the application. Treasury and SBA are working to put together a user-friendly process. I know that the banks, I can only speak for Heritage, but I know that we're working really diligently to try and decipher everything in the application so that we can put together a comprehensive guidance system for everyone who borrowed through us and now needs to start looking at the loan forgiveness portion. There will be additional lender and borrower information coming soon, and your lending company should be keeping in close contact with you, updates either via email or calling to let you know, as the first and second rounds of the lending process happened with SBA. Things were changing on a daily basis. So even things that I'm saying right now could be completely different a week from now. And that's really frustrating, and it doesn't help anybody in maintaining or lowering the anxiety levels that we're all feeling right now, just being, working in the business environment and being on the front lines and being out there trying to help our customers. So the first and foremost thing that I would say is do not panic. There's time for all of this. Sorry, I'm looking at my notes here as I'm going. Okay, so I'll tell you what we do know so far. Okay, it will be the borrower's responsibility to prove the use of the funds and to complete the forgiveness application. That being said, you're not alone. Reach out to your lender, and they will guide you as they can. What you're going to want to do right now is start to gather your information. You're going to gather, maintain, organize all of the information that's needed. Page 10 of the application that the SBA put out actually gives you what the documents that you should gather. So this is the time to be reaching out to your accountant and reaching out to your bookkeepers and starting to gather that information. If you do health benefits, if you do 401ks or IRAs for your employees, you're going to want to reach out to your health companies. You're going to want to reach out to your investment companies. You're going to want to reach out to your utilities companies and start to gather the documentation relating to your payroll for those people or for the utilities and the leases that you've been using over the last couple of months. You're going to need to have your SBA loan number. Your lender can give you that. You're going to need the date of initial funding. You're going to need your bank loan number, which will be different than the SBA number. Basically, you have 8 weeks from the date that the account was funded to utilize these funds, or the date of your first payroll. So if you're on a biweekly or if you're on a monthly payroll, they're allowing you to utilize that first date. So if you received your funds on the 4th of the month, but you don't have a payroll till the 15th, there's not an expectation that you adjusted your payroll to the 4th. So your 60-day period would start on the 15th if that was the most, the most recent payroll after receiving the funds. You will need to keep documentation for 6 years. So keep good records and hold on to them. Just as a timeline and a guideline, so our very first customer was funded on April 11th. They don't even have to start talking to us or working with us on anything until June 11th. That's the 60 days. And then even a little bit further than that, if their first payroll wasn't for 5 to 10, maybe even 15 days after that. There's not a rush. This is there's actually a 6-month period after your 60 days. Your loan will be accruing interest at that time, but the interest is also forgivable. But you have time to gather this documentation. In fact, the banks actually have, from the date that you give us a completed application, we have 60 days to go through the whole packet, to decipher everything, to gather more information if there are things missing, and then to forward that completed application for forgiveness onto the SBA. So there is more time than I think a lot of people were anticipating that there would be. Let's see, what else? Actually, that's kind of it. So just as a reminder, payroll calculations only include state and local taxes. They don't include FICA, FUI, or workman's comp. I talked a little bit about the 8 weeks when that period started, and that is what we know as of this moment, which I know is not a lot, but it's a start.
That's great. Thank you so much, Laura. Do we have any questions? If you could put questions into the chat box, we will unmute you as the questions come through. And I just realized and slapped my head that I called Kyle Dodd Kyle Davies. A name from the past. So sorry, Kyle. And I guess what we'll do is we'll wait till the end for Q&A, but we can hand the mic over to Kyle Dodd right now, if you're ready, Kyle.
Hey, thank you, Victoria, and
hey,
no problem on that. I was going to correct if you didn't catch that. I am very flattered. I know him very well and work with him closely as well, but I don't want any of my comments to be mistakenly attributed to him. So welcome, everybody. I'm glad to be back this week again. I'd like to start by giving everybody an update. I'm sure that you're all aware the governor officially announced yesterday that San Juan County is eligible to apply for a variance to move from phase 1 to phase 2 of his Safe Start program. Those of you that have been tracking our county response activities for the last couple weeks know that these variance discussions have been going on for the last probably 2 weeks. So before officially being notified by the governor yesterday, we were allowed an opportunity to start preparing that variance application, and had a couple of Board of Health meetings last week one on Monday, one on Friday, that we were hoping we would get a recommendation from the health officer to allow us to proceed with the variance application. We did not, so we've continued our work on that front to meet all the variance criteria, and we're very close to meeting those criteria. We believe we'll be able to have a special Board of Health meeting on Friday to get a health officer's recommendation to start that process. Real quickly on that process, what that looks like is it starts with the health officer recommendation to the Board of Health to submit the variance application. The Board of Health has to vote and approve that. Once the Board of Health approves that, then it goes to County Council. If they give us the go-ahead, then we submit our application to the State Department of Health, and the Secretary of Health ultimately reviews and either approves or denies that variance. So that's the process. Best guess, crystal ball on timing. I would think that if we get approval on Friday, then we would have our variance in by next week, and hopefully by the first week in June, we will know something related to that. And again, that's a lot of things have to line up for that to happen, but just being as transparent as possible with where we're currently at and the work we're doing to make that happen. Another update from the weekend is that the health officer issued a face covering order that went into effect on Saturday. So as of right now, all businesses should be educating and encouraging those that come in to use a cloth face covering. The second part of the order was that when the county moves from phase 1 to phase 2, the face covering requirement will be required. So that's something for businesses to know. We have signs available for businesses to post to help educate those coming into their business. We're also working on a FAQ document with some more specifics that clarify the requirements of that order. But all the businesses should be prepared to notify customers that they should have a cloth face covering once we proceed to phase 2. And as I mentioned, currently we're kind of in that soft rollout stage where they are strongly encouraged and that education can be provided. I know that when I'm out and about completing my essential activities and business in the stores, that the compliance rate is extremely high, and I think our community will continue to do the right thing, again with the overall goal that if we can continue to minimize disease occurrence in the community, then we get to continue moving through these phases and open up and stay open rather than the potential to slide back. So that's an update on that. And then now to get to the meat of the presentation, I was asked to go over the state guidance document for reopening for the staffed, we're calling it the staffed ATV, guided paddle sports, and horseback riding. That document also includes guided fishing, as well as staffed outdoor tennis facilities. So kind of a catch-all for outdoor recreation. Those that weren't plugged in last week, we have from our county COVID-19 website, and that can be steered to easily from the county council county homepage. There is a banner that guides you to the COVID-19 website, and under that we have a link, resources for business, And if you click on that, there is a link to the Washington State Governor's Guidance for Reopening page. And that's where he is placing all of the industry-specific, whether they be phase 1 or phase 2 now, reopening guidance documents. And that's where we'll start here. Last week, we kind of walked through the dine-in restaurants and a couple other ones. And today, we'll just kind of step through this guidance document, specifically the portion as it relates to guided ATV paddle sports and horseback, which I don't know that we have any of that here, but I'll mainly just touch on the paddle sports and the fishing as most pertinent, but wanted everybody to know where to find these specific documents. So if they pertain to your business, you can go download those and start working through them in anticipation of opening to ensure that you have everything you need to be ready to go once we proceed through those steps. So this guidance document is split up into phase 1 and phase 2 activities. So you'll recall that we're in phase 1 right now, and under recreation, there are some outdoor recreation activities allowed. This guidance document specifies kind of different levels of outdoor activities based on the relative risk. So that's why there's commentary in here specific to phase 1 and phase 2. So working down through that, the common theme is that we want to minimize direct contact between the public and your employees. So online reservations, prepay with credit cards, so there's no handing stuff back and forth. If they do need to sign waivers, ensure that they have their own pen, or maybe just provide pens for them. That's one less thing to disinfect as that's handed back over. Businesses will need to keep a log of all customers, including their first and last name, address, and telephone information. To cover the background on this item, again, from last week, it's really to help our staff in the case investigation and contact tracing realm. If there is a case that happens to be in a business or on say a guided tour, we want to be able to track down that individual very quickly and any close contacts they had, with the idea that we'll be able to limit the number of cases in the community. So that may seem like an imposition to customers, but it's really something of a negotiation. In order to open up while there's still risk, we need to make sure that the business is keeping a log of all their customers that they're coming into contact with. So if we need to track them down, we can do that efficiently to either recommend that they get tested or have them quarantine and watch for symptoms if, again, we find that there is a case in the community, and trace it back to a specific business. During phase 1, guided trips are allowed with a maximum of 8 participants from one household. So again, phase 1 is we want to keep that relatively low risk. So not mixing groups and those of differing households. The idea is that if you're living in a household with somebody, you're routinely exposed to them, and you're not going to potentially expose somebody else. So phase 1 allowed for same hausehold, maximum of 8 participants. And again, I'm just kind of walking through and hitting the high points of this guidance document. It is available online, and I'm sure John can refer folks to that appropriate link as necessary.
Yeah, and I've placed it into the chat here too. Hey, just a quick programming note, guys. We're gonna our first guest, Laura from Heritage Bank, is gonna have to leave us in a couple of minutes. Just want to make sure that if anybody had any questions for her, they had the opportunity to ask. Otherwise, we're gonna let her go to her next meeting, and we'll continue on with Kyle. If you guys want to raise your hands or throw a question in the chat, just yo ho now or forever hold your peace. I think that's a yo-ho. Thank you. Thanks, Laura. We really appreciate you coming on. I know you've got like just a ton of things you're working on over there. And just to confirm, so Heritage is still taking PPP applications?
We are, yes.
Okay, from existing business customers, correct?
From existing and prospective. So, you know, we are asking that we're allowed to have that conversation about someone moving and bringing their accounts to us, but it's not a requirement at this point.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's not limited only to existing customers.
Okay, that's a massive update. So that's really great to know. We know you guys, we talk to a lot of people in this county every day about where they're getting their loans from, and it is far and above coming from the local banks. So, I mean, we're just pleased as punch about how that is all working out here.
Yeah, I can only speak for our bank here. We've done almost $2.5 million to our local businesses just through Heritage. So it's really exciting. Yeah.
Okay.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for coming today, Laura.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you.
And if anybody has any follow-up questions, we can certainly direct you to those, or you can reach out to me at, I think you all have my email address now. It's john@sanjuansedc.org. I'll throw that into the chat as well. Anyway, let's let Laura go to work, and we'll get back to Kyle Dodd.
Thank you. So we were talking about difference between phase 1 and phase 2 for guided trips. In phase 2, once we move there, guided tours can consist of mixed households with a maximum of 3 households and 12 individuals. Overnight trips will also be allowed in phase 2, again in keeping with the camping that would be open in phase 2 as well. Another commonality between all these opening guidance documents is ensure physical distancing whenever possible. So during the check-in or the safety briefing, let's try and make sure that we really dial into that physical distancing piece that all of us are becoming more and more comfortable with as we're out and about. Disinfection, so specifically PFDs, personal flotation devices, paddles, any other protective clothing, ensure that gets disinfected between each use. Where we can, staggering the departures so we don't have, I'm envisioning from experience, County Park on the west side, so let's try and not have five big groups staging on the beach there, leaving at once. Again, to minimize the interaction there as well would be good practice. Shuttle transportation. So in phase 1, shuttling of groups is allowed, again, where all members are in the same household. I would add in there cloth face coverings would be a good idea in the vans. So just as an added protection step for staff that are driving the vans and the families that are in there. So it's an enclosed space. The rides can last, 10 to 20 minutes. So it'd be a good idea for cloth face coverings while shuttling groups as well, just to have that additional protection. In phase 2, mixed household groups can be allowed shuttling if the social distancing piece can be maintained according to the guidance. And then finally, as always, throughout these reopening guidance documents, ensure that there is a way to screen customers. So fever, cough, shortness of breath, any of the symptoms related to COVID, they should be screened and not allowed to participate, and just have them reschedule when they're feeling better. Same goes for staffing as well. So ensure that employees, you're also having a screener, ensure that they are not exhibiting symptoms as well, and potentially passing on a virus to customers. So that's the guided ATV, paddle sports, and horseback riding section. Next up in this document is guided fishing, and I'm just going to scan that real quick because that could likely apply. So we have the same log of customers, and again, that's going to be a theme throughout all these reopening guidance documents to ensure that we can do efficient case and contact tracing of any positive cases. Phase 1, so for guided fishing trips, up to 2 clients at a time are allowed and must be from the same household. Phase 2, mixed households allowed with a max of 8, but social distancing must be maintained. So that may be an issue with size of vessel. You'll have to determine how that pertains specifically to your operation and what you can maintain there. So in this case, cloth face coverings are required for both crew and guests. Difference here between guided fishing and the guided paddle sports is that with the paddle sports, you can maintain that physical distance on the water, but on a vessel with guided fishing, there's a lot more person-to-person contact there. So the facial coverings are a difference there as well. Stepping through this, so phase 2 would allow overnight again as well, physical distancing with different members of separate households, physical distancing again when check-in and safety briefing. And same with the shuttle transportation. So phase 1, shuttling groups with members of the same family are available and allowed in phase 1. And then with phase 2, groups of mixed households are allowed. Social distancing can be required. And same with the screening of customers and employees as well. Again, for those symptoms, we want to eliminate anybody who's definitely showing symptoms from participating and potentially spreading. So those are the high points of that guidance document. These are coming out with some frequency now, anticipating phase 2 reopening. So again, utilize that link where to access these to be sure that you have the most time possible to prepare to reopen and be successful. And I have signed on for another week, so I'll be on this call next Wednesday, and we can continue with an update on kind of where we're at county-wise as far as moving through the phases, and certainly be able to provide any clarification on any of the guidance documents as requested. So with that, I will open it up to questions.
Thanks, Kyle. We've got some in the chat box. Let me look really fast. We've got one from Steve Hushbeck. I'm going to go ahead and unmute everybody, actually, just to kind of make it easier, because I recognize everybody on the call. So unmuting, if you don't want to be unmuted, you may have to instantly or remute yourself. I'm not really sure how it works on your end. So here goes.
The question that I asked Kyle shortly after you mentioned that retail businesses are going to be required to attain a customer name. and
What
contact
I understand,
information.
in fact, that's what they just mentioned on this.
Does that include
Board
the
of Health is
grocery,
Friday.
hardware, and
They
so
approve it, it'll
forth?
go to the county council, which typically.
Because those have been open as essential businesses up until this point and haven't been doing that. Are they going to have to start doing that for every customer?
They won't, Steve. So those essential businesses that have been opened, where it's more of a transient business. It's not a place where customers are going to come in and spend long periods of time and potentially have an increased risk of exposure. It won't be required for those, but certainly when we reach the dine-in or some of these businesses where there's the potential to be in the same space for a long period of time, and the potential, more potential for exposure. That's where we get into the requirement to maintain the customer list. If that makes
Okay,
sense.
that was helpful. Thank you, Kyle.
Yep.
Thanks, Steve. Do we have any other questions?
Victoria, this is Krista. I have a question.
Yes.
Kyle, on that FAQ for the mask use, I received a copy of that through our liaison, and so I'm kind of wondering now, you said it was being worked on. Is that document available to share with businesses, or is it still being worked on?
So Krista, I would, if you receive that, I would go ahead and release that. So I was just looking for that to be posted on our webpage right before I got on the call, and there's so much going on here that let's go ahead and get it out. If it gets tweaked a little bit, so be it. So.
Okay, I just went and looked for it on your webpage and it's not there yet. So, okay, well, that's good.
Yep.
And then Victoria, I have a quick question for you. This meeting today, when will it be, the recording be posted? Because I'd like to share that to get Laura's information out to people.
Yes. John, when do you think you can get it turned, or is Mickey doing that?
That's
We'll
a Mickey, yeah.
afternoon.
It takes a little while to edit it, so because we'll have to trim out the beginning, so it'll probably be a few hours.
Thank you.
Could I, this is Chris, can I ask a question?
Of course.
For Kyle, will there be any certification process for businesses like restaurants, like any checks, whatever, that have to be provided to the county, or just sort of self-enforcement to the regs?
Yeah, that's a good question, Chris. We covered that with the dine-in guidance last week. It's that there is no reopening inspection from the county. It's basically an understanding that as a business owner, you will have a plan in place where required and meet all those guidance documents before you open. And again, the incentive there really is the more prepared we are and the more we abide by these reopening guidance documents, the more we're going to be prepared to limit the incidence of disease in the community. So once we start getting open here, we're able to stay open. So that's the incentive for all involved. There will not be any sort of reopening inspection or anything like that.
Thank you.
Quick question, Kyle, again. The county is posted online and it's been available in the Journal and the Islander and so forth, about the posters that were published online that are available for printing in various sizes that retail businesses can put in their windows. Has anybody talked about having those printed and a source for businesses to pick those up from various providers versus having to print them on their printer at home, if they even have a printer? So I was wondering about that for the last couple of days.
I know the Orcas Chamber is doing that, and I think Krista, weren't you doing that too? So
Yes, the chamber is providing some at our local print shop for businesses that don't have a good quality printer or no printer at all. Most of our businesses are printing them.
Okay.
Yeah, that's something that I can take back to our PIO. I think that Brendan's idea was that the chambers would kind of take the lead for those that couldn't print. But I can certainly loop back around with him.
Okay.
This is Becky, and I've got a question for Kyle. Kyle, on the keeping a log of people coming in, I was under this understanding that restaurants were told they don't have to do it because the ACLU got involved in that. And is that going to be the, is that different in our county now, or?
Another good question, Becky. That is something that hasn't trickled down to me, and I'm not aware the reopening guidance document has been changed since we walked through that last week. So stay tuned for more information on that. If you have something more relevant, certainly forward that on to me, but I haven't heard that the reopening guidance document has been changed to remove that. I think there are certain situations where, in order to protect public health, information can be gathered, and it's my understanding that it was utilized and inserted in there under that criteria.
I printed off the documents from, or I sent them out to the membership from the governor's office, and it said it was voluntary. So anyway, I'll send that on to you.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the group? Looks like there are not. I'm going to check the chat box one more time.
Actually, if I could,
yes.
I'm not sure Kyle would have a visibility of this, but when does sort of the tourist promotion start up? What will be the messaging, and what kind of timeline will that have? It's probably not a Kyle question, more Visitors Bureau, but does anyone have any insight into that?
Well, I'll take a first shot at that as it pertains to the phased reopening. So we don't envision, as many of you know, the health officer has a health officer order prohibiting transient accommodations to provide rooms to those that aren't here unless they're here for essential business or activities. We anticipate that health officer order being in place really until phase 3, where all non-essential travel in the state can resume. So I would say, Chris, that from a phased approach, once we're clearly in phase 2 and preparing for phase 3, that's when the health officer will start reviewing that order. And once that goes away, then we can expect people from outside the county that aren't coming here for essential business to be able to do that. So that's kind of the trigger point that we're looking at, and that really applies to, in addition to lodging, say the guided paddle sports and guided fishing as well. So it's predicated upon the fact that any activities that are going on in phase 1 and phase 2 should be with people that are in county and really traveling very minimally to participate in these phase 1 and phase 2 activities, not intended for travel from the mainland to participate. So that's going to open up in phase 3, if that
But
helps.
the earliest phase 3 could occur would be around end of June, early July, correct?
Well, there's a minimum of 3 weeks in each phase. We know that. We don't know quite when we will enter phase 2. If we're able to enter phase 2 the first week in June, then and everything goes well, and we spend a minimum of 3 weeks in phase 2, then yes, it would be toward the end of June, 1st of July by that math.
Okay, thank you.
Deborah Hoskinson is on the call. Deborah, did you
Yes.
want to say anything about what your plans are at the Visitors Bureau?
Yes, thank you. I unmuted myself to be ready. Yeah, so to answer that question, Chris, too, we've been in really close contact with, Mark Tompkins and his group, which includes Kyle Dodd, through Barbara Merritt in our office and the county council, and our board and marketing committee and staff have been meeting weekly. We're ready with our messaging as soon as we get the go ahead to begin marketing for phase 3.
And you're doing marketing now, but it's kind of a dream about what will happen. So
yeah, right now we've just been, as is, you know, kind of the information we're receiving from destinations all over the world, is that we're doing that soft messaging through our social media and our media relations to all those dreamers and planners out there who are itching to travel. So we're not doing any paid advertising though until we're ready to do that for phase 3.
Right. Cool. Thanks, Deborah. Okay, let me check and see if there are any more questions in the chat box, or if anybody has another question for Kyle or any of us. Go ahead and shout out now. Give it a couple seconds. Sounds like there's not. Now, I'm sure all of you know this, but our website and our Facebook page are being updated daily. So if you go to sanjuansedc.org, sanjuansedc.org, you'll get a link to our COVID resources, or Facebook, San Juan's EDC. So it's facebook.com/San Juan's EDC. You'll get 2 or 3 updates every day on that Facebook feed. So that's my little PSA. I want to say a big thank you again to Kyle for coming today, and for all of you for joining us for this conversation. We're going to go ahead and end up a little bit early, but if you think of a question or any other concern, just send us an email or give us a call and we can help you out outside this meeting. So thank you again for coming, and we hope to see you next Wednesday. Thanks, everybody.